how would you define self-discipline? Because a lot of, especially young guys, are getting into Stoicism. It's kind of like the hot thing on the internet the last few years. Yeah. And it's all about discipline. How would you define discipline?
This is where I think the Stoics, we would not agree 100%. Although I'd rather somebody go into Stoicism than nothing, you know, but don't stop there, because there are higher things, there are better things. The impression I get, and I'm not an expert on the Stoics, so I could be wrong in this, but the impression I get is that for the Stoic, self-discipline is all about willpower. For Aristotle, and particularly for Aquinas, it's not about willpower. It's about a habit, which is really good news, because we know that our supply of willpower in any given day is limited. It's like a gas tank. Every time you use some willpower in the day, you're drawing down that gas tank.
Right.
And you've probably had this experience. You reach a certain point in the day, it's like, I can't make any more decisions. Like I'm out. Like I have no more willpower, you know? I'm worn out. Whereas self-discipline is a habit. It is the habit of basically only following your desires when it makes sense to do so. When it's rational.
Say more about that. What does that mean?
So probably the best way to explain it is to think where courage has 4 sub-virtues, self-discipline has 15, to give you an idea of how complicated this can be, right? But let's start with the virtue of restraint. I begin the book with it. It's very simple. So that's one of the 15 virtues in self-discipline is restraint. And that's the habit of being able to go with or reject an impulse, right? So let's say you get in a big argument with someone and he says something really rude and pisses you off, you know, and you feel like punching him in the nose. And restraint says, probably a bad idea.
Right.
Because you're going to punch him, you're going to break his nose, and then he's going to sue you and you're going to lose. And then joke's on you, you know, so momentary satisfaction, long-term regret.
Right.
You know? So restraint is the thing that stops you from doing the thing that you desire to do in the moment when it's going to have long-term negative consequences, you know? But it's not willpower that stops you. It's a habit of saying, I feel like doing this. But the fact that I feel like doing it doesn't itself make me do it.
Right. I feel like I want a Twix bar, but then my mind says, you need to go to the gym tomorrow or you have a soccer game, and so I'm going to say no to the Twix bar.
Exactly. And so, in fact, abstemiousness is another of the 15, which is having kind of a right engagement with food, only giving in to the desire for food or particular kinds of foods when it makes sense to do so, right? And so, but the way you cultivate it, the way you strengthen the self-discipline muscle is pick one of the 15. So when somebody's trying to grow in self-discipline itself, it's really hard. But that's because you're trying to do all 15 at once, implicitly, right? So pick one of the 15. So for students, one of my favorite would be diligence. Okay, so diligence, again, most people would interpret it in terms of willpower, like study, do your homework, repetition, whatever. That's not how you grow in diligence. The way you grow in diligence is, first of all, recognize that we all have a desire to know things, right? We're curious. We want to know things. Part of being human, desire to know. Diligence is making sure that you use that desire to know for useful stuff or enjoyable stuff, you know? So don't waste your desire to know doom scrolling, like watching a bunch of useless videos, you know? Redirect that desire to know towards a language that you want to learn or history or whatever the homework that you have. Make yourself fall in love with the thing that you need to learn, so that then your desire for it will grow, and that's how you build a habit of diligence.
That's very well said.
It's a very big, it's a completely different approach to the willpower approach, right? Because if the willpower approach is kind of emptying that gas tank, the self-discipline approach is you building the muscle. And so the more you use it, the stronger you become. It's not depleted, it's strengthened. Every virtue has classically is the mean between two extremes, right? Excess and defect, too much and too little. Let me talk about one of my favorites. I invented the name for it.
Gentle firmness.
Gentle firmness. Right. Thank you. Yes, so gentle firmness. Because why? Because the traditional name is meekness. And you ask the average person what meekness means, and it's like weakness, wimpiness, doormat, you know, which is not true. The Latin term mansuetudo There's actually an English word, mansuetude,
Yep.
which doesn't help us because no one knows what it means, But basically what it means is to be firm and gentle at the same time. So steel fist, velvet glove, be unyielding, but in a nice way,
Right.
And it is the virtue par excellence for dealing with anger.
And this is within the self-discipline umbrella.
Within self-discipline
still.
as
Right.
well. One of the 15 self-discipline virtues. So you go through, as you go through around the different spokes of the wheel, you have restraint for desires to do petty things. You have humility for desires to do great things.
Mm-hmm.
You have diligence for desires to know things. Gentle firmness for the desire to be in control. We all have desires to be in control of our lives, in control of our situation. When things go out of control, the normal reaction is anger.
Right.
That's where anger comes from. It's like things are not going the way I think they should go.
Yes.
There are two reasons for that typically. Either they're not going the way they should go, or I have a wrong idea of how they should go, right? One of those things is going to be true. So what are the extremes in the case of anger? The too much is I explode. I feel anger and and I just lose my temper.
Yep.
That breaks relationships. It doesn't usually achieve much. If it does achieve something, it's because you bullied people and then they're going to get back at you somehow.
Right.
So it's just not a winning strategy. The opposite extreme, the too little, is I just stuff it in. I keep the anger inside me. I'm
Push it down,
push
subdue
it
it.
down. It makes me sick, gives me a stomachache, or makes me a wimp. Just the virtue, gentle firmness, is to feel the anger and make a decision about what to do with it. And what your mom told you, count to 10. Just like, it's true. Count as long as you need to until you're in control again. But feel that anger and then use it as energy to do the right thing. That's where the firmness comes from. But the gentleness comes from the pause. And every self-discipline is like that. It's feel the desire, pause and think what to do with
Coax it in the right direction.
And then exactly. And then
Yeah.
and the beauty is the more you coax it, the more you're sort of developing that neural pathway, the more it becomes a habit, so that once you have the habit of gentle firmness, you used to be a person who blows up at the slightest thing.
Right.
Now you are gentle and firm.
And that's your point about feeling the thing and then deciding what to do with it and channeling it is exactly the problem with Stoicism, because what Stoicism does a lot of times is it says, just don't feel anything. But that's completely wrong. It's not don't feel anything. It's feel the right thing at the right time in the right way.
Exactly.
Because your desires aren't something to be eliminated.
No.
That's why I love the way you define it in the book. It's how do I coax this desire in the right direction?
Because here's where you end up with the Stoic approach. You end up like the young man who said to me, what's the virtue for getting motivated? Because I'm not motivated to do anything. You know what? There's no virtue to get you motivated. Motivation comes from inside in the form of your emotions. Right?
Right.
Emotions drive motion, right? That's where your motivation comes from. But if you make the mistake of suppressing them, you will lose your motivation to do anything, because you've killed the very source, the energy, right? That drives you. But if you give in to them all the time, then you'll end up being a loser, because you're just always following whatever whim you have.
Correct.
So Viktor Frankl has a beautiful line where he says, between desire and action, there is a space, and it's a space where we decide. Right. And that he's basically describing self-discipline. That's what self-discipline is, recognizing that there is a space. A lot of people think it's no choice. So I feel like this, so I just do it. No, there is a space, and you can, through practice, widen that space, And in that moment you decide. And once you have the habit of self-discipline in any one of these 15, or then as over time you get them all, then you naturally, habitually look like the person who always only does what makes sense. Yeah.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And I think about that all the time, is your desires are there for a reason. Like if you want the Twix bar, it's not that you're never going to eat. It's that, how do I eat the right thing?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. No.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe. And if there's a friend of yours who you think would benefit from watching this video, make sure you send it to them.